All right, let's tackle one of the biggest questions there is. Why do great civilizations rise? And why do they inevitably fall? Today, we're going to explore a really powerful way of thinking about this, a model that looks at the deep, hidden currents that shape history itself.
I mean, you've probably wondered about this, right? How can something as huge and powerful as the Roman Empire or as sophisticated as the Aztec civilization just crumble? What could possibly be strong enough to topple giants like that?
Just think about it. You can literally go and see the proof. These incredible ruins that were once the absolute center of the known world. Now they're just silent reminders of a power that's long gone. Each one was a whole world, buzzing with life, and I'm sure it felt like it would last forever. And that's the part that's so unsettling. Every single one of them, from the ancient Egyptians to the more recent Soviet Union, probably thought they were different. They thought, we've cracked the code, we're the ones who will last. But, well, so far, history has always had other plans. So what's going on here? Is it all just a cosmic roll of the dice? A bit of bad luck? A weak leader? A natural disaster? Or is there something else at play? Some kind of hidden pattern of predictable rhythm that governs the fate of all great powers? That hidden pattern is exactly what we're digging into. The theory we're looking at is called the oceanic curve of history. And it's a cool name because instead of seeing history as some straight line always marching forward, it asks you to imagine history as a giant ocean with these powerful, predictable currents moving just beneath the surface. So these currents are things like geography, population changes, and culture. They create these big zones or ecosystems, like Europe or China or the Middle East. And inside these zones, empires rise and fall kind of like massive waves, all following a very similar curve. And this quote right here, it gets right to the heart of why this matters. See, history isn't just about memorizing names and dates. It's about spotting the patterns. The whole point is to find a way of looking at the past that helps us make sense of what's happening right now and maybe, just maybe, get a hint of what's coming next. So this model breaks the life of an empire down into three basic stages. First, you have growth and unity, then comes stagnation and decay, and finally, collapse and reset. We're going to really focus on that tipping point, that moment a society shifts from growing to decaying. Let's start with that second phase, the internal decay. Because this model argues that the seeds of an empire's own destruction are almost always planted at home, and they're planted by the people at the very top. This is the key idea right here. It's called elite overproduction. Basically, a really successful society gets so wealthy and stable that it starts creating way more ambitious, highly qualified people than there are top jobs available. All of a sudden, you've got this huge, brutal game of musical chairs for power and status. And look at the difference this creates. During the growth phase, the elites are builders. They're more or less on the same team. But in the decline phase, they split into warring factions. The goal isn't to build society up anymore. It's to carve out a bigger piece of the pie for themselves. Now, to make this idea feel a little more real, the sources we looked at point to this really fascinating and honestly kind of disturbing scientific experiment. Researchers created a perfect world for rats. I'm talking unlimited food, no predators, a paradise. They just wanted to see what would happen. The result was absolutely shocking. With no struggle, no challenges, no real purpose, the rats' entire social structure just fell apart. They stopped taking care of their young, they stopped mating, and they just descended into total chaos. The utopia completely collapsed on itself. So the lesson here is chilling, to say the least. It suggests that a lack of real challenges, of meaningful struggle, can actually destroy the social glue that holds a society together. The very comfort and success that an empire builds can become the poison that ends up killing it. Okay, so that's the rot from within. Now let's talk about this second big part of the equation. As the empire gets weaker on the inside, it creates a power vacuum. And as we know, nature and history can't stand a vacuum. This is where something called the borderlands comes into play. The borderlands are basically the regions on the fringes of the empire. The people there are often poorer, life is harder, they're constantly facing challenges. But all that struggle forges something the empire has totally lost: social unity, toughness, and a really powerful will to survive and fight. This comparison just lays it all out. It's a fatal mismatch. The empire is rich, but it's stagnant and divided. The borderlands are poor, but they're fast and they're united. While the elites inside the empire are busy fighting each other, the society on the outside is fighting for its life as one.
And you can see this exact pattern play out over and over in history. Take China's incredibly wealthy Song dynasty. It was weak from all that internal fighting, so what did it do? It hired Mongol mercenaries from the northern borderlands. But the hungry and unified Mongols, well, they didn't stay hired help for long. They saw the weakness, and they became conquerors, taking over the whole show.
So why are we talking about any of this? Why does it matter today? Well, the whole point of this model isn't just to describe the past. It's to give us a lens, a framework for noticing these same patterns in our own world right now.
So what does this decay phase actually look like? Well, according to the theory, you start to see a checklist of symptoms appear. Things like extreme political division, big economic problems and inequality, people stop trusting each other and their institutions, and a tendency to get bogged down in expensive, pointless foreign wars.
Now, this is a pretty provocative quote from the source material. The argument it's making is that when these internal pressures build up to a breaking point, leaders are faced with a choice: let it explode into a revolution at home or start a war abroad. A foreign enemy is a really effective way to unite all those fighting factions against a common foe. Now, it is absolutely crucial to be clear about this. This whole thing is not a crystal ball. It's not about predicting the future with 100% certainty. Think of it as a mental model, a lens. It's just a tool to help us see the huge long-term forces that are always shaping our world, often in ways we don't notice day to day. Which leaves us with one last, really big question to think about. If history really does move in these predictable cycles of rise and fall, what does that mean for us, right now, living through whatever phase we happen to be in? It's the kind of thought that really changes how you look at everything.